Good evening, everyone. It is June the 6th, and I will call this meeting of the Laramie City Council to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to join us, please do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Gabriel.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
O'Doherty.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Richardson.
Here.
Shumway.
Here.
Somerville is here. We're having issues getting her into the room. Mayor.
Thank you.
Cumby.
Here.
Harrington.
Here.
That's 9 present and 0 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. We'll move on to public comments on non-agenda items. If any member of the public would wish to speak to the council on an item that is not on our agenda this evening, please come forward in the room. Or if you are on Zoom, you can just go ahead and raise your hand. Please. Give us your name and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Harrington. My name is Lynn Montoya, Mayor, City Council members. I am the Wyoming Packing Partner for Meals of Hope. I'm pleased to report that this last weekend, we packed over 35,000 meals and had a little over 55 volunteers. We held this event at the Wyoming Territorial Prison State Historic Site, and I would just like to take a moment. All of these meals are going to go or have gone to the Wyoming Food Bank and to the Interfaith Food Pantry, but I would just like to take a moment and recognize Councilman Pat Gabriel and Councilwoman Erin O'Doherty for their support. They came out, they gave of their time, and I think that they've really exemplified and represented the city well in doing that. And I just wanted to make that announcement publicly because they did step up and really did impress me and other people that were there. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you for helping all of the people that you did. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montoya, and thanks for taking time to share that with us and for your service to our community as well. Council members, thank you. The floor is still open. Any other member of the public who wishes to speak to the council can go ahead and come forward. Please. Give us your name and you will have 3 minutes.
I'm Christopher Stratton, and I'm commenting on the liquor license issue that you're going to be bringing up later on in council. And the ordinance states that it's going off of the sexually oriented businesses, section 318. This is a problem, and it had been a problem before with burlesque because that is considered a cabaret. And so that's going to affect a lot of theaters and groups that would normally try and get those liquor licenses so that they could run as a venue, and liquor sales is one of the key ends to keeping artistic venues open in Wyoming. And I think using the outdated 318 definition is going to be a major problem. That's about all that I have to bring to table today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton. Any other members of the public wish to speak this evening on an item not on the agenda? We're going to give Chris some grace because he works really hard during the meeting and cannot pop back out. So if it's not on our agenda, now is your time. If it's on there, wait for the item, please. Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Hannah Heron, new resident as of a year, and I'm actually piggybacking off of what Chris was talking about and wanted to remind the council and everyone about the history of burlesque and how it plays a role to Laramie. The history of burlesque and our town have something in common, and that's the fact that both became part of the American culture in the 1860s. Burlesque debuted in America after the horrors of the Civil War to help brighten the spirits of a healing country. Here in Laramie, vets came out west to heal and start over. When looking at the history of Laramie, one thing is certain, and that is that we are and still remain the Wild West. Look at our very own historic Empress Theater, which most of you might know as the Co-op Big Hollow. It was once an elegant vaudeville theater. Vaudeville and the West go hand in hand, just ask Wyatt Earp. Vaudeville mixed performance, humor, and you guessed it, burlesque. According to Webster's dictionary, burlesque is defined as theatrical entertainment of a broadly humorous and often earthy character consisting of short turns, comic skits, and sometimes striptease acts. In other words, nowhere is it described as adult entertainment. Burlesque will often be, sorry, nervous if you
You're
can't
fine.
tell.
Yeah, no problem.
Burlesquers will often be offended if you refer to them as a stripper because they see themselves as artists. Burlesque is a performance. You take dance and costuming classes, which take years to perfect your art. Burlesque is an artful performance. The majority of the act consists of teasing the audience by not showing everything. Pasties are used to cover, and a burlesque performance will never be fully nude because that would defeat the purpose of the art as a whole. I was shocked to learn that with Ordinance 318, burlesque was being characterized as adult entertainment and found it incredibly offensive. Burlesque has a rich culture and history. Burlesque is also really good for small towns and local economies because it brings money and folks from smaller communities who wish to engage in this cultural experience. Not having burlesque in Laramie would be sad, not to mention missing out on the extra increase to our local economy. People who go to burlesque shows need somewhere to eat or drink. Performers locally use New to You and other shops to buy their costume pieces and will no doubt be hungry after a show. I know I am. A community defines itself by its local art, and without art, a town has no character. And Laramie has a wonderful community of performers. Please continue to allow us to celebrate our community with art. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks. I have to go to work, but
Oh,
I was
no.
here on my lunch break. But
Well, that's awesome of you. Thanks for taking the time. We
thank
sure
you so
appreciate it.
much.
And council, if anyone else would like to comment on those, it is on our consent agenda, so I'm going to leave the floor open for that topic if anybody else would like to, as this is there. It's 9-0. Okay. Anyone else, any other member of the public wish to speak to the council on a topic not on our agenda? And I will save some space for 9-0 if anyone would like to discuss that. Okay. Seeing none, we're going to close the public comment period. And we will move then to item 5, which is considerations of changes in the agenda and setting the agenda. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I move that the following changes to the agenda be approved. To add to schedule meetings, item 9.p.b, June 13, 2023, 6 p.m., work session, Dowling Diversion Project and 3rd Street beautification.
Second.
Motion by the Vice Mayor, second by Councilor Newman. All those in favor of this change to the agenda, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay, next.
Just, Vice Mayor, if I could, 1 second, in case anyone was persuaded by public comment there, I will just save one more space for changing that item on the agenda as it is on the consent. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I move that the agenda be set as changed.
Second.
Motion by the Vice Mayor, second by Councilor Pierce. Do we have a roll call on this, council members? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that item has carried. The agenda has been set. All right, council members, we are on to a series of proclamations at this point. We will move on first to Councilor Shumway. I have, for members of the public, I have asked other council members to read some of these because there are 4 this evening. Councilor Shumway, I will recognize you first for Small Cities Month.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Before I start, Mayor, let me just mention this. Small cities are cities with populations under 50,000, which is in the body here. In Wyoming, that's 97 of the 99 communities within Wyoming. So this proclamation by the City Council of Laramie, National League of Cities, Small Cities Month, whereas small cities and towns under 50,000 population are the home to millions of Americans and constitute the vast majority of municipalities across the United States. And whereas small cities and towns strive to strengthen their communities through the provision of services and programs to improve the quality of life for all citizens, and whereas the federal government is an essential partner in the success of small cities and towns and must be encouraged to continue to support programs and legislation that strengthen small communities, and whereas state governments are partners in the success of small cities and towns and must be encouraged to continue to support key programs by legislation that strengthen communities, and whereas organizations, businesses, and citizens are partners in the success of small cities and towns and must be encouraged to continue to grow their efforts to make small communities a viable choice for people to live in. And whereas during these challenging economic times, the need for a renewed intergovernmental partnership to support essential public services is more important than ever to ensure that safety and growth of small-town America. And whereas the National League of Cities president of the Small Cities Council of the National League of Cities have declared June 2023 as Small Cities Month. Now, therefore, I, Joe Shumway, on behalf of Brian Harrington, Mayor and President of the Laramie City Council, do hereby proclaim June 2023 as Small Cities Month and encourage President Biden, Congress, state governments, organizations, businesses, and all citizens to recognize this event and to work together this month and throughout the year to invest in small cities and towns to better the lives of all citizens. And this is signed by our Mayor, Brian Harrington, the President of the Laramie City Council and Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Shumway. I assume we will not have any photos for that, so we're going to go ahead and move straight on to Mosquito Awareness Month, which I have handed to Councilor O'Doherty.
For National Mosquito Control Awareness Month, June 13th to 19th, 2023, whereas the American Mosquito Control Association is an international organization dedicated to providing leadership, information, and education leading to the enhancement of public health and quality of life through the suppression of mosquitoes. And whereas the American Mosquito Control Association is dedicated to preserving the public's health and well-being through the use of safe, environmentally sound mosquito control programs since 1935. And whereas the City of Laramie, in cooperation with the Albany County Weed and Pest Board, has been involved in mosquito control activities since 1976. And whereas the mosquito control section of Parks and Recreation Department treats approximately 70,000 acres of rural and urban property in a 12-mile radius around Laramie. And whereas the mosquito control program follows an integrated pest management approach that includes control methods by the most economical means with the least possible pesticide exposure to people, property, and the environment. And whereas the City of Laramie has approved West Nile virus plan to detect and reduce the risk of human infection associated with West Nile virus. And whereas due to the efforts of the mosquito control program, the quality of outdoor summer activities in Laramie is improved, along with reducing risk of mosquito-borne illnesses. And this will be signed by our Mayor, Brian Harrington. So I think Scott Hunter is here. I'm not sure if Hunter Dearman is here. All right, could you join? So Hunter is our entomologist, right? Do you want to come up and?
I'll introduce him here.
Okay.
Thank you.
What do we do? Do we?
Give him just a minute. We'll all crowd up there in a moment for a photo.
Honorable Mayor and council members. I always find it amusing about Mosquito Awareness Week because when mosquitoes are out, everybody becomes like acutely aware of them. And I get a lot of phone calls, and so does the mosquito staff. And we try to be as as, quick with all our responses as we possibly can. This last year, we had some turnover in the mosquito control program. Hunter Dearman is my mosquito control supervisor. If you want to come up here, Hunter. Okay. Taylor Albright, he moved over from irrigation to the mosquito tech position. Taylor, if you want to come up here, please. I have to say that I'm liking everything I see so far, and you'll be happy to hear that our first our first larvicide is scheduled for this Thursday. We're already starting to see a lot of hatch out there. So with that being said, if either of you would like to make a comment, I'll open it up for you. If not, we'll move on to, and we'll bring some of your staff up here as well so we can get a picture of the proclamation.
I'm just happy to be here. It's definitely a change from where I'm from. I'm from the South, so we have mosquitoes year round. So I'm ready for it. So Laramie is a great community, and I'm just glad to be here. So thank y'all for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Mosquito staff, if you would like to go here. I'd like to thank them all for taking time out of their day and their schedule to come to the council meeting.
Yeah.
Good. And I'm not too sure how they'll go.
What a crew.
Yeah, this is awesome.
So filter in here.
Takes a village.
Yep. Everybody has complaints. What's the person you want to talk to?
Somebody got to hold this down there. Please.
John, scoot back just a little bit, right in front of her. There you go. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Need help with that?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Doherty. Moving on to the next proclamation. This one is mine. This is for Laramie Pride Fest. Whereas Laramie Pride Fest was founded in 2017 to raise awareness about Wyoming's LGBTQ+ community and their contributions to Laramie's unique, diverse tapestry in a positive and productive manner. Whereas the 7th annual Laramie Pride Fest is the most visible event in Laramie for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, LGBTQ+ community, their friends and their families to express pride in who they are and whom they love. Whereas Laramie Pride Fest is dedicated to ensuring that Wyoming's LGBTQ+ community has a safe and inclusive environment to celebrate and honor their sexual orientations and gender identities. Whereas Laramie Pride Fest joins annual Pride celebrations across the United States and the world in commemorating June 2023 as the 54th anniversary of the Stonewall Riots, the birthplace of the modern fight for LGBTQ+ justice and equity. Whereas LGBTQ+ citizens, led by trans women of color Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, resisted police harassment that arose out of discriminatory criminal laws that have since been declared unconstitutional during the Stonewall Riots. Whereas in the 5 decades since civil rights for the LGBTQ+ community have expanded substantially and pride celebrations across the country and world have taken place every June to commemorate the beginning of the Stonewall Riots. Whereas Laramie Pride Fest will raise awareness about Wyoming's LGBTQ+ community and their contributions to Laramie's unique, diverse tapestry in a positive and productive manner. Whereas Wyoming's LGBTQ+ community will celebrate Pride during the month of June with events happening throughout the state, including Cheyenne, Casper, Pinedale, Rock Springs, Lander, Laramie, and Jackson. And whereas Wyoming's LGBTQ+ community are living authentically today more than ever before, and they deserve to know the city of Laramie and the state of Wyoming support them. Whereas the city of Laramie celebrates its diverse LGBTQ+ community and is committed to ensuring equity for all Laramie citizens by fostering acceptance and preventing discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Whereas the city of Laramie is the only municipality in the state of Wyoming to have adopted a non-discrimination ordinance that prevents its residents from being discriminated against based upon their sexual orientation and gender identity through employment, public accommodations, and housing practices. Whereas the LGBTQ+ community is a vital part of Laramie's economy and culture and contributes to a stronger city. Whereas Laramie's economy and culture are more prosperous when the civil rights of all people are equal, and we recognize the LGBTQ+ community as being vital to Laramie's success as an economically strong and culturally vibrant city. Now, therefore, I, Brian Harrington, Mayor and President of the Laramie City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2023 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer Pride Month in Laramie, and congratulate the 7th Annual Laramie Pride Fest, and encourage residents in Laramie and across the Equality State to join Laramie Pride Fest in celebration and recognition of the accomplishments, history, and legacy of Wyoming's LGBTQ+ community. And in witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the city to be affixed this 6th day of June 2023. And we have a whole bunch of folks here: Kevin Rossi, Zana Wright, Coraline Wolfgame, Kelly McCleary, Jordan Bishop, Nicholas Jesse. I'd invite any or all of you up, and any other members of the public here for this proclamation. Please come on forward. If you have anything to add, that is, we would welcome you to add.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kevin Rossi. I'm the chair of Laramie Pride Fest this year. I just want to say thank you all so much from the bottom of our heart. The LGBTQIA+ community has been facing a couple of years of uncertainty, and so having the continued support of City Council just means the world to us. Thank you. Anyone else want to?
Thank you. All right, we will hand you this proclamation and take a photograph with you all, if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you.
We're getting pretty good at this, Council. And last but certainly not least, Councilor Gabriel for Bike to Work Week.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Bike to Work Week, June 13th through the 19th of 2023, whereas millions of Americans engage in cycling because it's a viable and environmentally sound form of transportation and an excellent form of physical fitness, whereas Bike to Work Week helps to increase public awareness for bicycling, educate the community about the benefits of bicycling for transportation purposes, and encourages people to try bicycle commuting. And whereas there's a need to promote alternative forms of transportation, such as walking and bicycling, in order to reduce pollution, reduce America's dependence on fossil fuels, and improve the health and well-being of all people. Whereas increasing the number of bicycle lanes, paths, storage facilities, and traffic calming measures will help the city ease automobile traffic congestion and encourage a healthy lifestyle for residents. Now, therefore, I, Councilor Gabriel, acting on behalf of Mayor and President of the Laramie City Council, Brian Harrington, do hereby designate the week of June 13th through the 19th, 2023 as Bike to Work Week in the city of Laramie. The city of Laramie furthermore encourages all citizens to recognize the importance of sharing our streets and highways with cyclists. And we have from the Planning Department, Philip.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of council. As an avid bicyclist myself, I'm very in favor of this proclamation, but also a couple of interesting facts about Laramie itself when it comes to bicycling and bicycle commuting in particular. Laramie, as Member Shumway had mentioned earlier, is considered a small community in the United States, and among small communities, we're in the top 10 as far as bicycle commuters go in the country. About 7% of the population bike to work, as many of you may already know. But it's wonderful news. I will say also that a bike home from work day is also in the works for this month. That is being worked on in conjunction with Downtown Laramie and also Blue Federal Credit Union that's sponsored this in the past. And then lastly, I just want to say that while the rest of the country celebrates National Bike Month in May, here in Wyoming, we can't count on the weather as well. So that's why you're seeing it in June. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Philip. Council, do you want to make Philip take a picture with us? I think we ought to. He's here.
Yeah.
Who else rides their bike? You should all right?
I mean, you're here. Right. And I see you riding it more on occasions, so certainly.
I actually didn't know Philip was at council when you guys here. You right? Oh, I can't see.
Phil, can you?
Councilor coming.
Pierce, you're kind of hiding. Perfect.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks for all your work on it. Thanks.
Thank you, councilors. We're going to move on to the public hearing. City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing of the City of Laramie budget for the 2023-24 fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, which is now being considered by the City Council, will be held Tuesday, June 6th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. in Council Chambers of City Hall, 406 Ivinson, at which time all interested persons may appear and be heard respecting such budget. All information relative to this matter is available for review at the City of Laramie City Clerk's office at 406 Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming. Anyone wishing to be heard should be present or may be represented by his or her agent at the meeting.
Thank you, City Clerk. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak during this public hearing? If you're on Zoom, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Welcome, Mr. Montoya.
Paul Montoya, Mayor of City Council. I know our city manager isn't present today, but I did want to thank her staff for what they prepared in this. I actually read through at least 3/4 of this, and I will say that it's been the best tutorial I've seen, especially on the revenue portion of the budget. I don't still quite understand all the expenditure side, but the revenue portion, it made a lot of things very clear as far as how revenue is collected. So I'd like to thank the staff for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. We share that appreciation. Any other members of the public wish to speak during this public hearing? Seeing none, we will close this public hearing and move on to any announcements. Do any staff members have announcements this evening? I should have asked during pre-council, but I failed to. Okay, any disclosures?
Mayor, no announcements tonight.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. Any disclosures by the City Council on items before us this evening? Okay. Seeing none, I will go to the Vice Mayor.
I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Second.
Motion by Cumbie, second by Pierce. City Clerk, you can call the roll on the consent agenda.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce. Sorry, Pierce.
I'm sorry, yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cumbie.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. The consent agenda has been approved. We will move on to item 11, Councilor Newman.
I move to approve Resolution 2023-39, adjusting the previous adopted appropriations of the City of Laramie, Wyoming for the General Fund, Recreational Center Fund, Capital Construction Fund, Utility Fund, Solid Waste Fund for the fiscal year of July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, and make appropriations and authorizing expenditures for all other funds for the fiscal year of July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Newman, second by Pierce. Director Wade.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Councilors. It's the bittersweet culmination of budget season potentially this evening. If you approve this budget resolution, I'll remind you of the journey we've been on the past few weeks together, and then I'll turn it over to the city manager in case she has anything to add. And so, as you remember, we distributed the budget publication to you at the end of April. We then held 2 work sessions, as this is a supplemental budget appropriation, so a little bit less lengthy process than in the first year of a biennium. We held the work sessions on May 10th and May the 17th, and had a special meeting on the budget on May the 23rd, where you were asked to consider some of management's recommended changes to the budget, and you also presented some of your own motions for council member consideration and vote to change the budget. After the special meeting, the city complied with its statutory requirement to publish a summary of the budget and notice of the public hearing in a newspaper of general circulation. Those notices were published on May the 27th and June the 3rd, and the notice also included our projected property tax levy of 8 mills, which we are projecting to collect $2.1 million in fiscal year 2024. And that's all the summary I have for you this evening, and I would ask the city manager if she has anything to add.
City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have anything to add. You've done a great job, Director Wade. Thank you. I guess I will backtrack and say I would like to add one thing, and that is to point out for the public who may be listening tonight that the budget that is recommended, and as Director Wade has just described, has been vetted through a series of public meetings in recent weeks, did include allocations to support all of the major 5 goals adopted by the City Council for 2023. Those include infrastructure planning and investment, interagency collaboration with partners like Albany County, the state of Wyoming, and the University of Wyoming. Goal 3, city services and resident engagement, and making sure that those are top-notch and very comprehensive. Goal 4, economic development, and Goal 5, environmental stewardship. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, Council.
Thank you, City Manager. Council, any questions at this point? We've had several meetings to get to this point, but you certainly are welcome. Okay. Seeing none, we are going to go to the public on this item. If there's any member of the public that wishes to speak to this item, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom. Come forward in the room. Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period. Council, any comments? Okay, thank you. Those public comments were well taken earlier. Director Wade, you and your staff sure make it easy to digest something that complicated, so thank you. All right, City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Somerville.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We will move on to item 12. Councilor Pierce.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to award the bid for the C-Line Phase 2 sanitary sewer project to Simon Contractors of Laramie, Wyoming in the amount of $3,912,60. I knew I was going to mess this up. $3,912,000
$912,687,000 with a contingency of $196,313,000 for a total amount not to exceed $4,109,000. Amend the fiscal year 2023 budget accordingly and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Pierce, second by Cumby. City Clerk?
Mayor, if we could just clarify those numbers, yeah. So we have in the amount of $3,912,687 with a contingency of $196,313 for a total amount not to exceed $4,109,000. I just wanted to clarify that to make sure we had it correct because it had a few extra zeros.
Thank you, City Clerk. Motion maker, so long as you are okay with that and the second is okay with that, we'll just call that what was said. All right. Director Webb, thank you for being here.
You bet. Honorable Mayor, City Council, Sea Line Phase 1 was completed last summer. That project ended at Canby and 6th Street. Phase 2 now goes from Canby and 6th Street, south on 6th Street, all the way to Ivinson. It's about 10 blocks. We are replacing some old and dilapidated sewer line and upsizing that line as we go. The project also includes, we will be redoing the ADA all along the corridor, and there's also some water fund monies in there to fix some water line that we know needs to be done while we're there. Great news on this, $2,904,000 of this is being paid for through the American Rescue Plan Act. We went for that grant application a few months back. We would have loved to have this bid out earlier, but because we were waiting for that grant funding to conclude, here we are. But this is a big project, like I said, 10 blocks long. We're guessing this is going to end up being 2 seasons because where we're already at in the season, and then because of the size of the project, obviously. So we went out to bid on May 9th. Bids were received. City clerk opened the bids, and Simon Contractors was the low bidder. Staff looked at those bids, and Simon's bid was good, and so we are recommending the low bidder, Simon Contractors, for the job. I'd be happy to take any questions if you have them.
Okay, thank you, Director Webb. Any questions, council members? Seeing none, we will go to the public. If any member of the public wishes to speak to this item, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom or come forward if you are in the room. Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Time back to the council for any comments before the vote. Okay, seeing none, City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We will move on to item 13. Councilor Pierce, back to you.
Thank you. I move to approve amendment number 04 to the professional engineering services agreement with Tri-Hydro Corporation for construction, administration, and management services for the Sea Line Phase 2 project in the amount not to exceed $364 and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign. Did I get it?
Motion by Pierce, second by Newman. Director Webb.
Yeah, Mayor, Council. Tri-Hydro is the company that did the design on Phase 1. They also did the construction management and administration on Phase 1. They designed Phase 2. And so being most familiar with the project, city staff is recommending them to do the construction management, construction services for this Phase 2 project. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Council members, any questions? Councilor O'Doherty, please.
It's more of a comment. Thank you for doing this and for pursuing the grants. And may I ask who finds that money? Was that something that you did or the finance staff to find for the infrastructure money?
Councilor Doherty, through you, Mayor, yes, it is a group effort.
Well, thank you to the group.
You
That's
bet.
really helpful to our citizens. Thanks.
It really is. Thank you, Councilor Doherty. Okay, we will go to members of the public on this item. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item can raise their hands on Zoom or come forward in the room. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period. Back to the council for any other comments before the vote. Okay, City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. Item 13 has been approved. We will move on to item 14. Councilor Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Laramie, Wyoming, the Board of Commissioners for the County of Albany, Wyoming, for ambulance services, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign, and also to amend the 2023-24 fiscal year budget.
Second.
Motion by Gabriel, second by O'Doherty. Chief Johnson, welcome.
Honorable Mayor, members of council, this is the third time this MOU's been before you. It's basically an intergovernmental cooperative agreement that sets out the terms and conditions that the City of Laramie provides ambulance service out into all of Albany County. The first period of time went from January 1st of 22 to June 30th. It was a half year. The second agreement was a period ending at the end of this month, was a full year, and the next one is set for a full year starting July 1st and then June 30th of next year. The only changes to the agreement are the dates, and then the fiscal amount has been raised to $275. There's still every effort going to be made to transition this agreement over the next year into a profit loss type of formula where we're not coming before the governmental bodies on an annual basis looking at the fiscal. It'll be based off of our pro forma that we do. That being said, the County Commission had this item before them this morning at their meeting. They passed it. Now it's before you tonight. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Council members, any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we will go to members of the public on this item. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on this item, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom. Come forward if you're in the room. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Back to the council for any comments. Councilor Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, if you would just comment briefly about the cooperative effort between the city and the county on this, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, so the City of Laramie runs the ambulance service, and we've traditionally, since 1979, we've responded out in Albany County. With the fiscal situation of keeping an ambulance service running in the county, about 80 to 85, depending on the year, 80 to 85% of our calls overall in the fire department are EMS based. So we're running 6 ambulances out of 3 stations, and of the ambulance calls that we do run, right at 21% are typically into the county. We approached the commissioners and they agreed to participate in a fiscal agreement that started in 2022, January 1st of 2022. And moving forward, we have our FIT study going on right now. We'll be working with the county to incorporate all of our data and try to figure out a long-term arrangement at the end. So. Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Gabriel. Thank you, Chief. Any other comments, Council? Yeah, Councilor Shumway, please.
I just want to mention this. Sweetwater County indicated that their rural ambulance cost was well over $1 million. So I think Albany County is getting a great service through the city and also at a very reasonable price. So I appreciate all the work that was done to bring us to this point. And I look forward to continuing to work with the county and the city on this endeavor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments, Council? Okay. City Clerk, you can call the roll on this item.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. Item 15 is to you, Councilor Somerville.
Mayor, my apologies. I'm driving. Can I have somebody else read that in tonight?
Of course you may, Councilor Somerville. Is there another council member
Thank you.
willing to take this evening? Councilor Gabriel is willing.
I guess
You take your time. No, you're fine, Councilor.
I went to the wrong tab, sorry.
Oh, we got all the time in the world, Councilor. You just take your time.
And Bill's that one there, we go.
Councilor Gabriel, Councilor Pierce has it if you
Yeah, go ahead.
are okay with that.
All right. And thank you. I move to approve original ordinance number 2058 on third and final reading, amending Laramie Municipal Code, section 9.16, regulating handbills upon private property when nuisance declared, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Pierce, second by Gabriel. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, this item has been before you on 3 previous occasions, tonight being the 4th, after third reading was postponed at your last regular session. This is a small modification to Chapter 9, a section within the nuisance code, and it would allow for the city, for purposes of public information or in the conduct of its official duties, to place materials on vehicles to make the owners aware of a variety of matters that would fall under that course of official duties or public information category. With that, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Council members, any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we will go to members of the public. Is there any members of the public that wish to speak to this item? If you're in the room, come forward. If you're on Zoom, go ahead and just raise your hand and we will let you into the room. Seeing none, back to the council for any comments. City Manager, I had one comment, but I'm going to actually, I see Councilor Somerville's hand is up, so I'm going to go to her first, and I will just save mine. Councilor Somerville.
Mayor, I'm happy to defer to you first.
No, that's fine, Councilor Somerville. You have at it.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I guess my comments are I am still pretty queasy at the breadth of authorization that we're giving in the ordinance. I think it's a good idea, and I think it's completely appropriate for street maintenance, road work, constructions. I can probably think of 20 reasons related to city business that it's completely appropriate, but I am still very queasy about the designee piece of this. Allowing other third-party agencies to do this or entering into agreements with any type of businesses or organizations to do this as well. So I guess, Mayor, my comment would be maybe more of a request is that the council is briefed on anything that's outside of, any street maintenance or construction projects or street cleaning or whatever that is. If there's anything outside that parameters, I would certainly appreciate it if the city manager would come to the council and brief us on that project. I just don't know if we're quite playing in the right side rails without amending this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Somerville. Councilors, any other comments? City Manager, maybe to in a similar vein, but to a lesser extent, I was going to request that maybe in a year you bring this back, or maybe a year from when you first utilized this idea, if you don't get it, sort of in process this year. I think after a year, it would be nice to hear if there were complaints about this. I think that would be of interest to me. I don't know about the rest of council, but I would sure be curious to know if folks are worried about it. And we had talked at length about things like using this as some sort of like a positive reinforcement on parking downtown, but I can see some real value in, what I wouldn't give to have somebody tell me when the street sweeper was coming to my house. I think there's real value in things like that. So I guess I'll just leave it there and go to Councilor Richardson.
Thank you. I appreciate both of those comments and would be in favor. I've been in favor of this this change to the ordinance, but I am fully on board with, hearing back from city manager to see how it has progressed and just having updates as well. That seems great.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments, Council? Okay. Seeing none, we will go. I'm sorry, Council, I have forgotten whether we went to the public. Does anybody recall? We did. Thank you, City Clerk. We will then go to roll call. City Clerk.
Somerville.
No.
Shumway.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
No.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses and 2 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. Council, for item 16, I'm just going to read this on by title. This will be discussion and actions related to the 2023 Wyoming Association of Municipalities resolutions for the Cody WAM Summer Convention. I would recognize the city manager for a bit of an overview of these resolutions. And then, Council, we will have a chance to have motions following some discussion. City manager.
Mayor, thank you. And not to change the plan, but the city clerk and I had discussed previously today that since she is in the room, we thought it might be easier for her to walk us through this PowerPoint. I'll be participating and backing her up as needed.
City manager, that sounds great. I didn't know there was a plan, but of course there was. City clerk, to you.
Thank you, Mayor. We put together this short presentation just to give you a brief summary of each of the resolutions that are being proposed this year at the 2023 Summer Convention for WAM. So the first one here, we have the Town of Shoshone Resolution 2023-010. The topic was non-taxable use of municipal buildings for healthcare providers. The action they're requesting is the Town of Shoshone supports such legislation as may be necessary declaring the use of municipal property by nonprofit healthcare providers serves a governmental purpose and the property is not taxable. So basically, if a healthcare entity is using a municipal building for their operations, they feel that it should be non-taxable. Their purpose for this was to help rural municipalities attract healthcare providers. They said it's really hard to get healthcare providers in their communities. The next resolution was from the Town of Shoshone, Resolution 23-012. The topic of that one was the ability to sell municipally owned land to developers for housing. The action is support for such legislation as may be necessary to allow municipalities the authority to sell municipal land to a single developer for the sole purpose of building attainable single-family homes. The purpose of this was to help rural municipalities attract employees with increased housing availability. So you'll see this in another resolution as well. Housing is brought up a couple times this year as a concern. Then next we have Town of Shoshone's Resolution 23-011. The topic of that was the authority to condemn abandoned property on private real property. The action was to support such legislation as may be necessary to provide the authority to a municipality to create a lien, allow for the condemnation and removal of abandoned buildings, mobile homes, or other vehicles posing a nuisance and safety hazard to the community. The purpose of this was the municipalities in Wyoming are having problems relating to the ability of municipalities to enforce zoning and public health ordinances on abandoned property located on private land. So that was kind of the basis of that one. This next resolution came from Cody, Resolution 2301. The topic was the 68th Annual Convention in Cody, excuse me, this actually came from Wyoming Association of Municipalities. Each year, as a community hosts the event, they like to recognize all the work that went into the planning and putting on of the event and stuff. So that was the whole purpose of this, was to say thank you to the community of Cody and the WAM staff. This next one, I believe, is the one that came out of Cody, actually, Resolution 23-01. A distribution of sales tax is the topic. The action is to request that the Wyoming Association of Municipalities support legislation to request that the state of Wyoming amend Wyoming's State Statute 39-15-111 to provide for a distribution of sales tax revenue so that 50% is distributed to the state and 50% is distributed to the counties and municipalities. The purpose of this would be municipalities seeking a more equitable distribution of sales tax revenues collected by the state. If I remember correctly in this resolution, I think it said 63% is what the current split is. And City Manager, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. The next one here was from Edgerton, Resolution 23-02. The topic was to allow municipalities with small systems and limited populations to subsidize water and sewer system costs. The action was support legislation to allow exceptions to Wyoming State Statute 15-7-407, particularly for municipalities with small or very small systems. The purpose in the resolution was allowance to use funds that are available to offset some of the rise in cost of operating those systems, thus providing relief to residents who are being overburdened with high water and sewer rates. The next resolution was Hartville Resolution 23-02. Topic was to create utility and other municipal services lien authority for municipalities and joint powers boards. The action was such legislation as may be necessary to provide authority to a municipality or joint powers board to create a lien arising from past due bills for public utilities and other municipal services necessary to correct hazardous conditions. The purpose is the allowance to collect past due utilities and other municipal service bills. Then we have our series of Jackson resolutions, so there's no numbers listed here, but the first one was the workforce housing again. The action was that WAM support and continue to push for statewide review and action on the range of workforce housing challenges Wyoming's communities are facing. The purpose is to initiate discussions about our state's housing crisis, to collaborate with the state legislature and other stakeholders to find resolutions for the current housing crisis in Wyoming. Next we have Rollins Resolution 5-23. The topic was to clarify the lien and assessment process by which municipal expenses for abating nuisances and dangerous buildings may be recovered. The action that they're asking for support and advocate for Wyoming legislation to clarify the lien and assessment process by which municipal expenses for abating nuisances and dangerous buildings may be recovered. The purpose is to provide the lien procedure or an assessment process on real property involved, thus hindering municipalities' ability to recoup expenses incurred by municipalities as a result of abating nuisances and dangerous buildings. So basically, a way for them to recoup costs there. We have another Jackson resolution for decriminalizing medical marijuana. The action that they're asking for is that WAM support legislation to legalize the use of medical marijuana. The purpose in the resolution was legalize medical marijuana to benefit from increased tax revenues. The next Jackson resolution, the topic sets forth They're asking for fees to be set for retail liquor licenses at a fair market value. The action is that WHAM support legislation to change state statute to develop a system based on fair market value on retail liquor licenses and the establishment of a sliding scale for liquor licenses overall. The purpose, again, kind of restated, is requesting a sliding fee scale that would benefit the cities and towns. Next, we have another Jackson resolution for the allowance of a real estate transfer tax. The action is that WHAM support and urges the state of Wyoming to support more flexibility for localities to levy taxes that make sense within their jurisdictions to be utilized for community priorities. The purpose is additional tax revenue within the body of that. So with that, Mayor, that was the end of what I had as far as a summary goes. I'd be happy to turn that over to the city manager.
City manager, do you have anything to add?
Mayor, I don't, other than just to clarify on the state 4-cent sales tax. Cities receive 70%, or excuse me, the state retains 69% and then a 1% administrative fee. And so the cities receive 31% of what is deducted or what is collected within our jurisdictional boundaries.
Thank you, City Manager. Council members, the floor is open for any discussion. If there's any council members that have questions or concerns about specific topics, I would just ask you to go ahead and raise your hand and address those, and then just by way of process so everyone knows, the council will decide what of these resolutions we support. Councilor Shumway will then carry that on to WHAM at the Summer Convention. Councilor O'Doherty.
I support all of them.
I like your brevity, Councilor O'Doherty. I was waiting for more, but I appreciate it. Councilors, any other comments, questions?
Richardson online, Mayor.
Thank you, City Clerk. Councilor Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have two questions. One is the proposal for Shoshone supporting legislation that the municipal property serves as for municipal property by nonprofit healthcare provides service at governmental purpose and property is not taxable. If an entity is utilizing a government building property currently, so it is taxed right now? Because I would think that the city would be the entity that owns the property. So I'm just not sure of maybe I don't understand this well enough, but it doesn't seem like it's not sure where it's coming from, I guess.
Mayor, through you, Councilor Richardson, the counties and state will assess tax based on the use of the building, not solely ownership. So to give you an example, when the city owns, say, buildings we built to help businesses expand, and then we lease back those properties for the business to operate, sales tax will be assessed at that point in time. Also, where we have properties that we are marketing to put into business use or to sell into development, those also are taxable despite our public ownership.
Thank you. That helps clarify the whole thing for me. And then my second question, if I can, unless someone else has
No, please, Councilor Richardson, go ahead.
I'm also not completely sure about the Hartville request and what that looks like or why that was kind of brought forward. You know, I'm thinking about like large landowners, like ranches, farmers, that sort of thing. If they weren't able to pay that, what does that look like in terms of the land that they own and their? So I'm that one I just have a little bit of question on as well. I'm fine moving forward with it if the rest of the council feels like they are good with it as well. But it's that one I just have a lot of questions about, I guess, based on the kind of the background of it.
Mayor, through you, I think I can shed a little bit of light on this. As I understand it, in Wyoming, municipal liens on property are given a very low priority. In my own professional experience, I've not been through any situation where the city of Laramie has exercised a lien on a property. And maybe the city attorney would like to speak to his experience or has had experience with that. But it is my understanding that municipal liens have the lowest priority. So the likelihood that that lien will ever be satisfied or any money recouped back to the municipality is exceptionally low.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Council members, any other questions? Councilor Gabriel, sure.
Thanks, Mayor. I had a question
Please.
for Councilor Shumway, if I could.
Sure.
Since, Joe, you have a lot of experience with WHAM conventions, can you kind of take us through how some of the discussions evolve with these resolutions? Is there a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth on some of these things?
Thank you, Councilor Gabriel. And I'll just say this. There are times when there is an issue that is very controversial and the discussion goes on and on and on. My experience has been this meeting usually lasts 30 minutes, and that's if there's no controversy. But there's always somebody, because there's 98 communities that attend this, there's always somebody that wants to get up and talk. And so usually what happens, if the issue has something that someone is concerned about, then it's back and forth. The longest I've ever seen it go on is probably a little bit over an hour. But it's generally, what we have accomplished here is we have already gone through this. And so if there's something that we will not support, they give us cards. And we hold it up if we're going to vote for it. And then the ones that vote against it hold up a card. And if there's division, then they count. But generally, they just look and say, the yeses have it, and so they move on to the next resolution. It goes fairly fast. This is a chance for every community, every municipality to bring forward items that will then move to the state legislature for them to rule upon, so that they have something that will benefit their community. But thank you, Councilor Gabriel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions, council members? Okay. Councilor Shumway, I'm going to move to you for a motion to approve.
Okay. Let me, first of all, ask the city clerk, you have gone through and given all of these 12 resolutions and explained what they are. Can I just move to support all of the resolutions that are before us? Okay. I move that the City Council support the following, I move that the City Council support all of the resolutions proposed to the Wyoming Association of Municipalities for the WHAM Summer Convention of 2023 in Cody, Wyoming.
Second.
Motion by Shumway, second by Newman. Council members, any discussion or any questions at this point? Seeing none, we will move to members of the public. If there's any members of the public that wish to speak to this motion, go ahead and come forward. Raise your hand if you're on Zoom. Mr. Montoya, welcome.
Thank you. Paul Montoya, Mayor, City Council. The only thing I would ask, that was a good explanation that Councilman Shumway gave. Maybe just for the public, I would appreciate that someone give a little bit of an idea of how this moves forward. I would assume there's 98 votes. If it's a majority number that vote positive, I would assume that WHAM would structure some bills for the legislature to be presented, including the Cody bill, which I'd be surprised if that had a chance in hell passing through the legislature, but I think it's great. I think there's a lot of items in this that would really positively affect Laramie, so I do support your decision to support these, especially some of the nuisance ordinances seem like they'd have a lot of teeth from a state standpoint, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Shumway, do you want to go ahead and throw an answer to that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Wyoming Association of Municipalities does take this after this has been approved, and we have a lobbyist, a paid lobbyist, that then goes before the legislature, and they bring forward these 12 issues and ask for their support. Dave Frazier, who is the executive director, works behind the scenes, but our lobbyist does most of the footwork. And then then it moves through the different committees, and some of them die an early death, some of them move on, but as these issues come before the state legislature, they treat each one of them in the committees that they're assigned to.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other members of the public wish to speak to this item? Okay, we will close public comments on this. Back to the council. Councillor O'Doherty.
I want to point out that I don't think William crafts bills. They would have to find a legislative sponsor, and if there's no sponsor, then we're just out of luck. But if the bill does make it to the floor, then we would advocate for it, and sometimes municipalities send people to advocate.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Shumway.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk, and thank you, Councillor Shumway, for carrying these votes through to WHAM. Item 17, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. I move to approve original ordinance number 2063, amending Title 15 of Laramie Municipal Code for the purposes of updating the notice requirements for annexation procedures due to language in Wyoming State Statute 15-1-402, as recommended by the Planning Commission on first reading in accordance with findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Second.
Motion by Richardson, second by Pierce. Principal Planner Gabatuller, welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of council. Changes to existing statutes on annexation were signed into law at the most recent State of Wyoming legislative session, particularly the one before you this evening, where the amount of notice that is required to property owners in a certain distance from an annexed property was raised to 20 days. So this ordinance is truly about aligning with that statute. So you can see in the cover sheet where we added it into where all the public notice requirements are, particularly written notice. We just added a section to account for those 20 days instead of the 15 that are normally given to most other development projects. So glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Council members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will go to members of the public on this item. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council can come forward in the room or raise your hand on Zoom. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period. Council members, back to you for any comments before the vote. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. Council members, do you want to take a break before item 18? Okay, we're going to take a, let's call it an 8-minute break. We will be back at 7:50. All right, council members, we're going to get back to it. Councilor Gabriel, we're going to invite you back up. Give the councilors just a moment to scramble up here. All right. And then Vice Mayor, we will go to you for item 18.
I move to approve original ordinance 2064 on introduction and first reading, adding Laramie Municipal Code Section 2.60, creating the Laramie Police Citizen Review Board.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Cumby, second by Pierce. Do we have Chief Brown or City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor.
Please.
Yes. Council, as you know, this year we had a goal established for 2023 to take a look at our boards and commission structure. So I would assert that this item falls generally under that umbrella of looking at our board and commission structure. But as you well know, and many members of the public know, the effort to establish some sort of citizen board that would interact with the policing functions of the city has been underway in a very focused manner since 2020. As you'll recall, in 2020, we did form an ad hoc working group for police and community, and asked that ad hoc group to review practices, policies, public engagement relative to our municipal policing efforts. And then we asked them to come after their review and make recommendations to city government leadership. That working group did provide 3 recommendations for improving public engagement, and subsequently thereafter, the City Council adopted Resolution 2022-20, which directed the city manager to establish a police and community committee. So what you see before you tonight is the fruit of those 2-3 years of effort. Original Ordinance 2064 would add to the city's established board and commission structure a new body that would be the Laramie Police Citizen Review Board. This would be a permanent standing board of the city of Laramie, not an ad hoc board. And it would function as do most of our other citizen boards, such as the Parks, Tree, and Recreation Board, or the Traffic Safety Commission, or the Board of Health. Providing a structure through which our residents can gain greater understanding about city services, interact with those services, and provide recommendations and advice to city government leadership. With that, I think I will turn it over to Chief Brown, who can come up and speak to the specifics of this Police Citizen Review Board.
Thank you, City Manager.
I'm happy to answer any questions as well, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. Council, if you're okay, I think we'll hold them until after the chief has had a chance, and we'll just do questions at once. Chief Brown, welcome.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for your time tonight. I would like to also thank the city manager and the city attorney with their work on this project. I would like to start by pointing out Resolution 2022-20, Section 1, Subsection 2, specific to residential engagement. And that resolution was passed by council on March 23rd, 2022. And this is once again the fruits of those labors. And as part of that resolution, the council was looking to establish a committee for the purpose of providing an effective partnership between the Laramie Police Department and the community. I believe that this board is an advisory board, and it is part of that resolution of creating a better relationship with our community. I will add with an emphasis that it is only part of what we're doing as a police department. We are actively engaging our community in a plethora of ways, including our new community and policing sergeant position. His team will be out in the forefront of our police department. Some of our social media efforts, we are actively out there trying to engage our community. So this is part of that. It is an advisory board to the chief of police, as the city manager mentioned. It is is consistent with other boards and commissions across the city, and this board will have the opportunity to advise the police department and myself as the chief of police in a variety of issues, including policies, procedures, use of force. Yeah, so I'll answer any questions that you have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Council members, questions? Sure there are some. Yeah, Councilor Gabriel.
Thanks, Mayor. Chief, I'm curious, I sit on a number of boards as liaison, Parks, Tree, and Rec Board, Tourism Board. Agendas are put together by usually the Assistant City Manager for Parks and Rec, sometimes Jody, the Recreation Supervisor, or Albany County Tourism Board by the Executive Director, Scott Larson. Meeting-wise, how would you envision putting together an agenda for your meetings?
So one of the, through you, Mr. Mayor, one of the new positions that we have at the police department is an administrative sergeant, and this will be one of his primary roles, is setting the agenda and acting as the recorder once he receives training through the city manager's office and the city clerk to do so appropriately. So it will be one of his primary activities to prepare presentations for the board, to answer any questions regarding discussions related to the board, and prepare the agenda.
Thank you, Councilor Gabriel. Councilor Newman.
When I ran for city council, I made it apparent that I would not vote for this, and we've had this discussion. I'm looking at the membership part, it's Article 6, Part B, so 5 civilian members. I think as an advisory board or an outreach program that you're trying to do here, why don't you think town halls would be a better choice than five civilians compared to more people who can give insight on this?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Newman, I think they're both vital, to be honest with you. And what this board gives me as the chief of police is it gives me a sounding board. It gives me the ability to provide presentations as to what the police department needs, where we're at staffing-wise, what we're doing, use of force, what type of equipment, resources that we have. And then this board is also an advisory committee for yourselves. So they have the ability to bring forth items in front of you regarding an example that I like to use is a drone program. Say hypothetically we wanted to expand our drone program. This is the type of presentation we can give this board, and hopefully gain some support in a smaller setting before bringing that to the general population and yourself. So I think both are a vital portion of what we're trying to do with our community engagement effort. But sometimes having a dedicated smaller group of individuals who are trained to point to what we are doing and some of the stuff that we are doing. And to that point, there is some training requirements in here that you will see in the bylaws. And my reasoning for that is with all the other boards and commissions that have been mentioned tonight, we usually look for a specific area of expertise. The Traffic Commission's a good example, is we're looking for someone with an engineering background or something associated with engineering. For this board, we're not. So we're looking to give them an idea and a basis of what we do on the police side, some general laws, use of force, policies, the way that we act on a day in and day out basis. So hopefully they have a basis to make some of these decisions and understand these presentations, which isn't always available to give to the general public as a whole. And we're also looking at doing that in collaboration with our Citizen Academy, which we plan on establishing here, hopefully by the beginning of next year. And with that, we'll be open to the general public also.
Thank you, Chief. Council members, any other questions? It's an interesting question. Councilor Pierce? You can go ahead and ask it. I think it's appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
When I read through the information, it didn't give us any guidance on how are we going to appoint a liaison from council if we go ahead and approve this. And I don't know if that needs to be a quick addition or if we can, there we go. Thank you.
Please, City Attorney.
Yes, Mayor, Council. Liaison appointment process is not set out in ordinances.
Okay.
And so that's going to be a council decision however you wish to make it. I'm going to give you some guidance on that, but we don't put that in ordinances. Okay. And I'll say that part of the materials that you reviewed has, some proposed bylaws. And those bylaws include the city council's obligation or promise to appoint a liaison.
Okay,
But how you do it, I'm not sure, but it wouldn't go in ordinance.
thank you. Would that be an appropriate discussion now, or should we wait? Or, because this is
Please,
more the
City
meat of the thing, and if it passes, then we're going to need to come up with a plan.
Yeah, my gut says we wait on that, but I'm going to go to the city clerk and see if I'm wrong.
I see city manager is unmuted, so Mayor, I defer to her first.
Thank you, city clerk. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. To that question, the bylaws do contemplate council appointed a liaison. I think it's in section 6B, if I remember correctly, or 6A. In any case, council, you, as I would agree with the attorney, you can do that however you choose. I would suspect you would want to do that once you appoint your initial liaison. Then you would just follow the same processes that you do every time we seat a new council for appointing liaisons to boards and commissions.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, city manager. Council members, any other questions? Vice Mayor, please.
Thank you. Chief, I'm just wondering, in this committee, would you also see the committee members as potentially reviewing citizen concerns and bringing those to the committee, reviewing citizen complaints that might be submitted? Would they be a part of that review process?
Through you, Mr. Mayor? Yes, as long as it's allowable by state law. There is some state law that gives, that kind of bounds us as to what we're allowed to share on the personnel side as far as the investigation. But in the bylaws, I believe it is written that we will provide a yearly report regarding citizen complaints to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Council members, any other questions? Councilor Richardson?
Thank you. You may have noted this before, so I apologize if I'm repeating something that you've already shared. But in creating this, I know that Chief, you were involved, city manager, the city attorney. Were there others who have been advocating for this who are also involved in creating these bylaws?
Mayor, I'm happy to take that question. Councilor Richardson, the recitation of history that I offered at the beginning, I think really is the heart of the input that led to the bylaws and the draft that you have in front of you that you'll be presumably passing on third reading of this ordinance if we get to that point, and then also encapsulated in the ordinance. That ad hoc working group that formed and did their work largely in 2021, it was comprised of, I think, 22 representatives from the community, and we had a huge array of representation and input coming out of those groups. To give you an example of where the chief, myself, and the city attorney incorporated the input of our ad hoc working group, I would point you to in the ordinance draft, the second whereas clause, where one of the recommendations is memorialized there from the ad hoc working group. And they had suggested that the committee before you tonight for consideration would include formerly incarcerated individuals and individuals from underserved or otherwise disadvantaged groups within the city. And that's a quote from their recommendation. And you'll find that we've carried that recommendation and that advice forward into the ordinance and the bylaws for this group. So I guess the quick answer would be many people have had input on this, I'd say on par of probably 36 citizen members. And then also we worked over that time, 2020, 2021, and 2022, also with some advocacy groups that existed in the community already that brought to bear recommendations, and we've attempted to weave those concerns and ideas into this draft.
Thank you, City Manager. Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions, Council? Yeah, Councilor Gabriel, please.
I wanted to share an email from Tracy Roseland, who's served as the co-chair of the Ad Hoc Committee for Police and Community Working Group. And we received this email today, and her question, if I just could maybe translate this. Let's see here. She was suggesting on her recommendation when she served on that committee as the co-chair, was there ever, Chief, consideration of you and the city manager serving in a liaison position instead of full voting members?
Please, Chief.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, council member. So as the head of the organization and the chief of police, and also I won't speak for the city manager, but we have had this conversation. And as the head of the city, I think it's prudent for both of us to have us or one of our designee be voting members on the board. And the reason for that is I think we see it through a different perspective than necessarily the general public will, but also even our line level officers or our line level staff at the city. So I think it gives us the ability to look at and present on issues through a different lens that brings a valuable component to the police board. And that's why I think it's a good mix of city staff, police staff, and also community members. I'll also add to the city manager's point, we had an opportunity to present this to our sergeants last week. So last Friday, I myself and Assistant Chief Terry presented this to our sergeants, and we also had numerous back and forth conversations with our lieutenants and our administrative staff. And this is a collaborative effort from everybody on the police department side, as well as the city attorney's office and city manager's office and the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions, council members? Okay. Chief, I was curious, so this grew out of the community and policing relations recommendation, if I'm not mistaken. I may forget the exact wording of that recommendation, but am I correct there?
Mr. Mayor, I believe it's the resident engagement recommendation, and it's out of resolution 2022-20, section 1, subsection 2, and it's specific to the city manager shall investigate the creation of a police and community committee.
Thank you. And the reason I ask that is I think it's important to distinguish this from what council failed to move forward with, which was civilian oversight boards. I think there is an important distinction to be made there. Regardless of your feelings of those, this is not that. So I think by way of some comments by council members this evening, I think that distinction is important. This certainly didn't exist a few months ago. This was purely concept, maybe in your mind, Chief, and maybe in the city manager's mind. But at that point, the council had only resolved to increase sort of our relationship between policing and the community. And then I think my other question, Chief, is really I think personally this is something I failed to do in 2020 when we had these conversations. And the things that flag for me when we discuss having like large town halls, those are hard to manage and hard to have productive paths forward. And, I think through that process, one of the things that I personally lost in that conversation was reaching out to the folks that work for you. So I guess my question would be, given that you said you brought this to your sergeants, how did that conversation go? And what is sort of how are you feeling about this ordinance?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and the rest of the council, I think we have I think he must have had a call for service. I was going to say there's a sergeant here who could speak to that, but I think it was very positive, and it's been positive this whole time that we've been having this discussion. I don't work on an island, and I didn't start this discussion in the last couple of weeks. We've been having this communication and this discussion since even before I got here. I had an opportunity to be asked some questions on community boards before I arrived here. So the men and women within the police department are well aware of what this is, its purpose as an advisory board for the chief of police, and the notion that we do or we don't have oversight. I can tell you in the state of Wyoming, we do have significant amount of oversight for policing. It's through Wyoming Post. It's through the city council. It's through our community members that we have to answer to every day, and it's through the city manager's office. So it has been positive within our organization. I've had several conversations with our sergeants in the last 3 or 4 days since we provided the presentation on Friday, and the questions they had were valid and they were good questions, and we were happy to answer those, and I'm excited for their positivity behind it and also the community's positivity behind it.
Thank you, Chief. Council members, any other questions? Okay, I'm going to go to the public on this item. I do have one member of the public who signed up early, which is Richard L. Martin Jr. Come forward. You will have 3 minutes. We expect to have some lengthy public comment, so I will hold you to 3 minutes, and I apologize in advance for cutting you off. But give us your name, and the floor is yours.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Rick Martin. I live on Palmer Drive here in Laramie. I am a 1986 graduate of the United States Air Force Police Academy. I rise in opposition to this measure for a civilian review board. We have an excellent police department in Laramie. It's one of the reasons my family and I chose to move here. Because of my line of work, I have a limited interaction with members of the Laramie Thin Blue Line on a weekly basis. I recently was able to hear Chief Brown share his professional testimony at a breakfast, and I believe him to be a man of character and ability as our Chief Administrator for the Laramie Police Department. Our police officers are dedicated professionals who stay within the boundaries of both departmental policy and the law in their performance of their duties. History has shown, and I don't have the time to tell you tonight, that such review boards are unnecessary. Other mechanisms already exist to counter actual police misbehavior, and I'll share a little bit about that with you soon. But review boards have the potential to lead activists with an axe to grind by exerting control over our local police force. I ask you, why would you allow a convicted felon to have a seat on the review board? This measure allows that. Everything you are asking the review board to accomplish is already being done by our paid police management team. Our highly trained, experienced chief, assistant chief, commanders, training officers, and shift supervisors are being paid to do what you are asking 5 appointed volunteers to do. These volunteers will have very little training and even a smaller amount of experience compared to our management team that I mentioned. A civilian review board sounds like a reasonable idea to some, but we already have legitimate mechanisms in place in Wyoming to deal with issues of police corruption, brutality, and other misbehavior. I'll give you some examples. We have our mayor and city council, and truly, you are the civilian review board. And an alternative to this could be an omnibudsman for the police department that would take complaints. We also have the county commissioners, the district attorney. We have a county grand jury that can be impaneled, the governor, the state legislature, the attorney general. All of these have investigative powers. If our police were to get out of control, citizens can go to those organizations and have an investigation done. So they provide a proper avenue for redresses of grievance against police officers, officials, departments that violate the rights of the people. Like everything else in this imperfect fallen world, this system is imperfect, but it is far superior to the proposed police review board. In closing, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, I thank you for taking a moment to review my ideas, and I appreciate other ideas and suggestions as together we strive to improve the system. I'd ask you please to vote no on this civilian report measure. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Martin, thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us. Please come on forward. Give us your name. You'll have 3 minutes. I'll hold you to it.
Thank you, Council. My name is Tim Hale. This may be foreign to some of you, but I always like to do the simplest solution first. And I believe the solution is sitting right back there. And if he's doing his job, you don't need an oversight advisory. And I would hope that your expectations of a police chief were conveyed when he was hired. And if he satisfied those concerns, then my thought is give him a chance. And if he fails, if we start having cops giving drunks ride homes, if he's exempt from shoveling his own sidewalks, like we had a previous police chief that didn't have to shovel his own sidewalks in the winter, and we start having some issues where the police chief isn't leading by example, then the answer isn't an advisory group. The answer is you get a different police chief. And I believe if the police chief is capable of running a department in an adequate manner, in a professional manner, we're not going to have problems. And case in point, I called our police chief, Mr. Brown, and scheduled an appointment with him. He met with me in an expeditious manner. I explained to him the situation. He seemed to be concerned, and in a very timely manner, he got the problem taken care of. I didn't have to come down to the city council. I didn't have to write a letter to the editor. There was an advisory group. And if a citizen can't do that, then I think there's some problems. And I'm not aware that our police chief has been obscure to the public. And until such time that there seems to be an array of problems in the police department, I think this is a little premature. I was on a police forum group that a couple of our former police chiefs had, and it was a joke. And as soon as you brought up something that was somewhat contentious, I found myself fired. The whole program was a joke. I don't know of anybody that thought it wasn't a joke, and the thing just died. And I find it peculiar that, according to this resolution, you need to have a background check. And I would assume you want a background checks to kind of weed out the scum. And then you turn around in the same paragraph and can we get somebody that's been incarcerated and probably has a criminal background? I find that confusing, very confusing actually. So I would hope that this council would look at something like this and put it down before it's too late. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hale, for taking time out of your evening to join us. Any other members of the public wish to speak to the council? We'll go here and then to you, Mr. Pine.
Council, Chief Brown, my name's Mike Schilt. I've been a lifetime resident of Albany County. And I don't want to repeat everything these guys said, but it sounds like they looked at my notes, so we're in good shape here. I believe that the LPD and its officers see their responsibilities are to protect and serve the public by enforcing the laws established by the legislature under the umbrella of the U.S. and the Wyoming constitutions. And I read through your bylaws, and I think there's some things that I would look at to be changed, but honestly, I think the thing that's being missed here is I don't think we need a review board for the police as much as we need people to reach out to the community to help the community understand what the police do. I think the majority of our community is ignorant totally of what the police department does. I've got a son on the police department. I know what happens in this community at nights. Most people have no idea what goes on in this community, and they don't care. They're apathetic towards what's happening. So I don't think the view needs to be towards the police department so much as it needs to be educating our community. So, thank you for your time.
Schilt, thank you for joining the council this evening. Go ahead and come on. Okay.
Honorable Mayor, City Councilors, thank you so much. My name is Tracy Rosenlund. Thank you, Councilor Gabriel, for bringing up that question from my email. I really appreciate that. For some of you who may not know, I was one of the co-chairs for the ad hoc working group for police and community. I will say I wished we had more time for that working group. I feel like there is actually so much information to review and consider when looking at these types of review or advisory boards as well that we weren't able to get to. However, I won't spend time trying to go over all that information as there is too much to cover in just a few minutes. I was really excited and pleased to see this on the agenda tonight. I think that this is really a wonderful start to what could be something great. You know, this review board would have the opportunity to open up an avenue to members of our community who may feel disconnected from the police department and who don't feel as comfortable contacting maybe Chief Brown directly. I've had the opportunity to meet with him during his interview process. I spoke briefly with him tonight. And even in the interview process, the public portion, he did mention that he was open to considering these kinds of things. And I know he's from, California and has had experience with these types of boards before. I see my time is running short, so I will try to make this quick. I fully support the training requirements that are outlined in there for the members of the board. I think it's critically important for anybody who participates in this to be aware of the policies, procedures, and the trainings of it. And from my understanding, it's pretty close to what initial officers get when they start. And so while they may not have to go through the proper academy, they still are understanding the ins and outs of how our police force works. I did have some reservations about some of the language that was used. One was independence. Typically, recommendations say that these types of advisory boards should be independent from the law enforcement agency that they're reviewing. I think it critically important to have open channels of communication with the chief of police and the city manager, however, to provide the information needed. I would like to see some strengthening language of the purpose that would include the ability to give recommendations instead of just communicate what the police department does. Because in my outside experience, unfortunately, the standard channels that we have not been effective to producing the kind of change that we would like. In sum, I think this is a great start, and that it would benefit from some development. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time out of your evening to join the council. Are there any other members of the public? Please come forward. Please give us your name. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Linda Devine. I'm a resident of Laramie, Wyoming. Some might call me a community activist, but it doesn't mean that I have any axe to grind. I'm here in support of this resolution. As a defense attorney, I don't always agree with what law enforcement does. It doesn't mean that I don't like them, that I'm a cop hater. What it does mean is that I sometimes see things that many in the public don't see. But what I am happy about is this new police chief. I think he's working diligently to provide transparency to this community. It's interesting to me that so many are coming up against this and that we have this police chief that we can rely on when we have the police chief who's also wanting this to come forward with. I would also probably echo many of the things that Tracy said. She said all of the technical things that needed to be said, so I can just kind of spew my opinion. I appreciate the attorney here and city manager. I do have reservations that it's the chief of police, the city manager, and also retired or a former law enforcement. I think we all know that with the ad hoc committee, everyone that voted against it, or all law enforcement voted against it. So it does concern me that you're going to have, it's going to be heavy law enforcement again. And I don't see this as something just to go and do a gotcha moment with all law enforcement. I really want to see this as, I think what it's designed for, more transparency, community building. And I think when you have different folks from different areas of life, different disciplines, coming together, that we all can come together and provide some good information. So I just want to thank you all for following up and doing this. And again, thank you, Chief, and the city manager, and look forward to you passing this. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us. Any other members of the public wish to speak to this item? If you're on Zoom, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Taylor Norton. We'll come right back to you. We'll go on to Zoom, and then we'll be back. And Taylor Norton, you will have 3 minutes whenever you're off mute. You can go ahead. I'm not sure if you're speaking, but we can't hear you if you are, despite I see you're off mute, but having a hard time hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are.
All right. I'm not sure what's going on there. All right. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I would just like to say that I generally support the proposal here. I do have a couple reservations. They sort of mirror some of the things people have said earlier. I question why some folks are upset about the prospect of including a formerly incarcerated individual or more than one on this board, when the reality of incarceration is that you can a criminal, so-called, is anybody who commits a crime. I know that sounds obvious, but a crime is just anything that's illegal. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a violent crime or some horrible, heinous act. It could be simple as petty theft. I don't know. I don't understand why people are just jumping to the worst conclusions here. I think that's a silly concern. But more to the point, I think I don't understand why a board that is designed to provide serve in an advisory capacity to the chief of police and the city manager would have both of them on its board as voting members. I don't understand why someone would be considered to be advising themselves in a government capacity. I find that unusual. I also echo the reticence at having such a strong police and former police presence on such a review board, because it heavily skews the analyses of anything that might come before the board in the favor of the police. And I'm not trying to say that the police are inherently bad or anything like that. I'm trying to say that if a bad thing happens, it's been shown historically throughout the country, and I don't necessarily think Laramie is immune from this, that police will protect themselves and each other from consequences just out of a sense of camaraderie. And I don't necessarily think a sense of camaraderie is inherently bad, but it can be harmful to a community when it upholds violent systems. And I also understand that there are some people who are completely satisfied with the way things currently are, and that the current chief of police seems to be, on the level, but that's just it. That's the way things are right now. We can't say for certain how things are going to be in the future. And I don't think it's unreasonable to want to put in safeguards against abuse of the system that might happen in the future from less reputable police chiefs or less reputable police officers. And I think that, again, this is a good place to start. It could be reworked a little bit, I think, to be a little bit more egalitarian or what have you, but I look at this generally optimistically, and I hope that the city council can see things slightly in the way that I do, hopefully, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Norton, for taking time out of your evening to join us. Mr. Montoya, you are next, and then Mr. Harris, we will go to you.
Paul Montoya, Mayor, City Council. I wasn't really planning on speaking to this today. I didn't really have any strong feelings one direction or another. In discussions with Chief Brown in the past, I think he was supportive of this if this were to go through, and I think he'd be a very good active participant in this. I did have a chance this afternoon to read through the bylaws, and quite honestly, even though these bylaws are not complex, it gave me some cause for concern in a lot of areas. When I looked at the duties of this committee and what they'd be responsible for, and also looked at the training process, I became quite concerned that we could find qualified people to really do this job that you're really asking them to do. So I tend to agree with a previous comment in that I tend to think a lot of this are jobs that sometimes you as city council people really need to take on if an issue or a circumstance comes up for review of a particular incident. Looking at the training and seeing the requirement for scenario-based virtual training, overview of the department's organizational, operational equipment, and weapons and use of force policies, participation in 20 to 40 hours of training, and an overview of applicable laws governing force relevant to state statutes. You're looking for a person that has policing experience, legal experience, and so forth, and I just think it's asking too much. So at least at this point, I lean toward encouraging to vote against this. Maybe this could be restructured in another way that might work a little better, but at this time, I just kind of don't see this really being a good solution to problems we have here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya, for taking time to join us. We will go to Billy Harris on Zoom. And the floor is yours whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Beautiful. My name is Billy Harris. I'm also speaking in support of this bill with echoing the need for development within it. Still, I echo Tracy's and Linda's and Taylor's points about having the city manager, police chief, and a citizen with former law enforcement experience. I think those are important people to have in this equation, but I agree that having an open communication or liaison role would be much more efficient and would transform this from being kind of like an ineffectual education group into something that can actually have this outside eye and community support and can be community oriented rather than police oriented, because that's what this really is about, is getting community information, not Laramie Police Department information. And specifically, I wanted to point out in Article 4, Section 3C, sort of about the police officer's split-second judgment and in certain rapidly evolving, that whole section. I think that opens up a really vague area in terms of looking at use of force that kind of gives police immunity in those situations regardless. So I would encourage y'all in developing this more after passing this reading to either eliminate or really edit that section to have that immunity not baked into this ordinance and move forward from there. Yeah, sorry, I'm rambling at this point, but that's what I've got. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Any other members of the public wish to speak to the council this evening? Go ahead and come forward or raise your hand if you are on Zoom. Okay, we will close the public comment period. Back to the council for any comments before the vote. Councilor Doherty, please.
I was trying to find the wording originally. I thought we called it a police community relations board, but that's semantics. But from what I heard from the public about people don't know what the police do, well, I think this was exactly why this board is helpful. The other thing I want to say is not everyone who has been incarcerated has committed a crime. We have a justice system. Sometimes people go to jail and they are found innocent. And I also want to say there's no scum among the citizenry of Laramie. We're all people that deserve the dignity. We're human beings and we deserve respect. So I support this and I hope everybody else does. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments? Councilor Newman.
I still will not support this. I have a hard problem with supporting it because, we've talked about community outreach, we've talked about transparency, but 5 people on a board isn't that. I do like the bigger meetings that the chief of police could have. I just have a fear that those 5 people won't go out and kind of talk about what happened in those meetings. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm done with these meetings, sometimes I don't have time to go and tweet or put out what we've talked about for other people who haven't seen them. So I will not be supporting this.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments? Vice Mayor? To you, Vice Mayor.
Okay.
Councilor.
I support this. I served on the ad hoc committee. It was a involved and tedious process. It went on for months. It required a lot of effort. I think that this offers us a pathway for communication and relationship building. I see it as more of a dynamic group that we're laying a foundation and that will build upon that foundation. And though individuals who might be appointed to the board may not have extensive police experience, they may bring in valuable experience related to mental health in our community, related to the justice system, etc. People may have views and experiences that could be very valuable, and it could offer insight from the community members into policing, into the demands and the complexities of policing, as well as it may offer the police insight into some things in the community that are hard to see and observe. It gives you some inside information. And one thing I wanted to say is, when we were cloistered because of COVID, and there was very little going out in public and interaction, I would receive phone calls and emails from constituents, and I found that very valuable. It often changed my opinion about things to talk to people. Since we have gone beyond the COVID thing and we're back out in public, we as council have been trying to get out to public events, to talk to people, to be available, and I learned so much that I didn't know about the community. I try to get out, walk the communities, walk the west side, and it gives me a totally different perspective, so that when I come back here, I'm not voting for me. I'm taking that information in and trying to learn from that and make the best decisions that I can. So I think this offers us a valuable beginning where we can begin to communicate and really build relationships within our communities. So I do plan to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilor Shumway and then Councilor Richardson.
Thank you, Your Honor. I found the history of Laramie, Wyoming very interesting when I was first appointed mayor. So I did a little bit of history, and the first mayor was self-appointed. The first chief of police was self-appointed. It was 2 brothers, the Moyer brothers, Con and Asa Moyer, and they were awful. They were absolutely awful. And the only thing that in the history of Laramie that they could do to stop their abuse of power that they had was there was a group of concerned citizens. Back in the 1860s, they called them vigilantes. And what they did is these vigilantes got together and they decided that they were going to stop this abuse of power, so they came down couple blocks from here to a saloon called the Bucket of Blood. And 300 of them went in there and got Asa and Con Moyer, and they took them and hung them and stopped that abuse of power. Then what happened, there's a great lawman that was appointed sheriff. His name is N.K. Boswell, and he turned the city of Laramie, the Albany County, turned it around, and they became a law-abiding community. I'm speaking against this board. I think here's what happens. We have an N.K. Boswell, Chief Brown. Right now, he is listening and doing everything he can, but I think that this board that ought to be formed should be a board to, and I think the board should be called a citizens group to advise the city council. And if we have somebody that's a Asa Moyer or someone that decides that they're just going to be awful to the citizens, it's our responsibility to change it, to get a Chief Brown, to get a Sheriff Boswell, and make this community work. As soon as we start micromanaging and telling our police department how that they're to do their job, the citizens can go from concerned citizens to more vigilant, more activists. They need to work through the elected officials, which is us, and then we, with the city manager and with the city council, can say it's time to make a change. Let's get this back to where it needs to be. Right now, it's not broken. Right now, we have a great police department. I know that they were out last week handing out donuts, and they have a great rapport with the community. I want to make sure that continues, and we have the responsibility to make sure that all of the concerns that the citizens have are communicated, not only to us, but through us to them. And so right now, it's going to be hard for me to say yes to this group that's being formed.
Thank you, Councilor Shumway. Councilor Richardson, thanks for being patient.
Thank you. I agree with Councilor Shumway that our current police chief and the police officers are doing an outstanding job of community outreach and getting to know our citizens. And I think this is just an opportunity to build on that. I think the idea is to create more strength than what we have, build on the positivity that's here. And I think having this group who will come together and learn more about policing and will express when they have concerns I think it can be a boost to the community and to the police force. And so I will be voting in favor of it as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Richardson. Councilor Gabriel?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of sitting on the fence on this one. I hear everybody, and it seems right now that probably we'll support it. Maybe we can tweak it after, if it does in fact pass first reading and second and third. But I remember about a month ago, we had Chief Brown and his report on activity with the public. And he reported in hundreds of contacts and incidents about a handful of complaints. And it was just remarkable. And I was really impressed with what the department is doing. And so I'll just say that I'm open to persuasion on moving, but I think right now maybe we can make some adjustments. But I think right now I'll go ahead, and it's nice to know that Chief Brown is in favor of this, but I think I will at this point support it, see what happens during second and third reading.
Thank you, Councilor Gabriel. Any other council members? Anybody else for their first time before we go back to Councilor Doherty? Yeah, Councilor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think from my perspective, my opinion has not changed over, frankly, the years that we have been discussing this topic, is there is not a real firm understanding of what we call community oversight and the powers that an oversight board would be given. This is not that. And I want to be very clear, and I would recommend that everybody read the bylaws. I read them a couple times. I think it's important that we absolutely read them. And because of how the current bylaws are written, I'm going to support this. I think it's an amazing first step. If changes occur, I may very well change my mind. But I think we really need to be open to this opportunity to really explore. And it is like Councilor Richardson said, who is now...
She's up there.
She's up there? Oh, yeah. Okay. It's a great first step. It's a good foundation, like Councilor Cumby said. I think we should be excited about this. I think, like I said, I think those who are opposed to this, the line that I like, I'll tell you right now, Article 2, Section C, the board exercises no control over the policies, procedures, or personnel of the Laramie Police Department. I think this is powerful, and I'm going to support it.
Thank you, Councilor Pierce. Any other council members for their first time? Councilor O'Doherty, for your second.
I guess I'm reiterating that it's not a police oversight board. That was killed when we had that discussion. It's more community relations. The police said it gives them an opportunity for a sounding board. If you want to have, it doesn't preclude having public meetings, listening sessions. It's just really hard to pull those off, like to find the time, the space, and so this does not preclude that. It's a way for the police chief to be able to say, we're thinking of doing this, and people can say, well, you know what, when that happened, this, the people in the mental health community, the people that deal with people with substance abuse, they can give valuable feedback, and so I'd like to keep that in perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Doherty. Councilor Newman for a second time.
I understand what you guys are saying, and I've read the bylaws many times as well. And what I keep hearing is my belief, my belief. You guys got to remember, we were appointed by our citizens, so it's not our beliefs, it's their beliefs. And I also see the transparency and the steps that this could take. The problem is it's 5 people, and that's my biggest problem. It's 5 people. I don't need a board for the chief of police to run stuff by. That's us. That's what we're appointed to. So that's like my biggest problem. I know it's not an oversight committee. I know they have no voting. The chief of police doesn't even have to listen to this board at all. My problem is what we're trying to accomplish is transparency and outreach. 5 people doesn't do that. And that's my biggest problem with this. Thanks.
Any other members for their second time? Okay, seeing no more. I think one of the things that I've been considering, I'm going to support this, which I think will come as no surprise, but a few weeks ago we were having a conversation about budget amendments, and it was said that we would be wise to trust our chief, and that was persuasive to me at the time. I voted in the way that member spoke. Because that was persuasive to me. I continue to believe that. Our chief brought this to us, and I will trust his wisdom that this will be valuable for his department. And I do think I think it's important for us to consider that there's, there are substantial distinctions between this and the oversight board. It's been said a lot of times, but the council decided not to move forward with that. This is not that thing that was discussed at length. And I know people care passionately about that, but it's, I think at the end of the day, this is a step in a direction that allows more people into the police station, allows more people into the police department and getting to know those people. And as the mayor, I have found myself at the police department more times in the last few months than I had in the 4 years leading up to that time. That's been important to me. I mean, my own sort of perspective on things has shifted by going to them and meeting them where they're at. And it doesn't change my opinion of sort of these bigger systems things, but it's, I feel affirmed in the belief that we've heard from the public and members of the council that we have a good police department, we have a good chief, we have good leadership. But, I think one thing that is lost in this conversation a little bit is we keep coming back to, like, we're appointed. This council is meant to be the backstop for our police department, but in a city manager form of government, we're not. Our Civil Service Commission is, and our city manager is. We don't hire or fire any police officers. We didn't hire or fire our chief. Our city manager did. And so I think, you want to start having the conversations of, if you want to get rid of somebody, okay, get rid of them. We can't. That would not be in our purview. So then we would be having a conversation of, okay, are we going to get rid of our city manager, so our new city manager will get rid of the chief, and then what does that do to the city? So I think I would just leave you with that as something to think about as we have these conversations. I don't know that it's a valid argument that we are appointed to oversee the police department, because we are not. With that, council, I think I will call for the vote. City Clerk?
Somerville.
Yes.
Shumway.
A soft yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
No.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses and 1 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has passed first reading. For members of the public interested, that means 2 weeks from now, it will be back on second. Council, we'll move on to item 19, which is public comments. Any members of the public wishing to speak to the council can come forward. You'll have 3 minutes on any topic. Raise your hand if you're on Zoom and would like to speak. Please, Mr. Vine, come on back.
I'm actually unabashedly going to promote something, and I hope City Council will come to it. We're having a Juneteenth celebration at the train depot, free to the public. I'm not making any money off of it, so I'm not trying to use this time for that. It's 4 to 7 p.m. There's a band coming up from Colorado that plays R&B, soul music, and of course I'm cooking, so I would invite you all to attend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak to the council this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment period. Council members, any considerations for future council work sessions? Seeing none, I will recognize Councilor Pierce for item 21.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Gabriel, because he started first. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Council, we are adjourned. Thank you.